Before we get into the story, comment below where you are watching from today. The city bus hit a pothole, jolting Elena back to reality. Her mind had been somewhere else entirely, stuck in that sterile doctor's office where just 40 minutes ago her whole world had crumbled. Mrs. Morales, I'm afraid it's what we suspected. End-stage renal disease. Your kidneys are functioning at less than 15%. The doctor's voice had been gentle but firm as he'd handed her the prescription for dialysis. We need to start immediately. Elena clutched her purse tighter, feeling the paper crinkle inside. She hadn't cried in the office, hadn't cried on the hospital steps. But now, squeezed between strangers on this overcrowded bus, her throat burned with unshed tears. Her phone buzzed for the third time. She didn't need to look to know it was Sarah. Her daughter had a talent for calling at the worst possible moments, as if she had a sixth sense for when her mother might finally have a minute to herself. Elena took a deep breath and answered. Mom, where are you? Coach Peterson just called me. Ricky's the last kid at practice, and they need to lock up the field. I'm stuck showing the Hendersons that lakefront property. Dad's not answering his phone as usual. Elena watched raindrops race down the bus window. I'm on my way, Sarah. The bus is running behind today. Bus? Why didn't you take Dad's car? He never uses it during the day. The irritation in Sarah's voice was unmistakable, as if Elena was deliberately complicating everyone's lives. Your father doesn't like me driving the Audi. Even after 42 years of marriage, Robert treated that car like it was his firstborn. Whatever, Mom. Just hurry up, okay? And don't forget we're all coming for dinner tonight. Maria's bringing the kids, too. Elena closed her eyes. Sunday dinner. 9 people. The lasagna she prepared yesterday sat in the refrigerator at home, but the salad wasn't made, the garlic bread wasn't ready, and the dining room was still cluttered with Robert's tax paperwork. And now, apparently, she needed to fit in dialysis 3 times a week for 4 hours each session. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. Without treatment, you have months, not years. I remember, Elena said softly, but Sarah had already hung up. A young man sitting across from her caught her eye. You okay, ma'am? You look like you're having a rough day. That simple question, the first bit of genuine concern anyone had shown her all day, made Elena's eyes fill with tears. She quickly dabbed at them with a tissue. Just tired, she managed to say. My mom used to ride this route too, he said with a kind smile. She always said the 43 bus hit every pothole in the city on purpose. Elena found herself smiling back. Your mom sounds like a smart woman. She was. Something in his expression shifted. Cancer took her last year. I used to tell her to take a taxi, but she insisted on the bus. Said it kept her connected to real people. Elena nodded, suddenly feeling a strange kinship with this stranger's mother. She was right about that. The bus lurched to a stop at the sports complex. Elena gathered her things, surprised when the young man stood up too. Here, let me help you down the steps. They're slippery today, he offered. As his hand steadied her elbow, Elena felt a lump rise in her throat. Such a small kindness, but it felt enormous in a day filled with casual indifference from those who were supposed to love her most. If you've ever felt invisible to the people closest to you, stay with me as Elena's story unfolds. Sometimes the most powerful awakening comes after years of silence. Thank you, she said, meaning it more than he could know. Take care of yourself, he replied, and then he was gone, continuing his own journey as Elena began the walk to the soccer field. Ricky sat alone on an aluminum bench, kicking the dirt with his cleats. His face lit up when he spotted her, and for a brief moment, Elena's heart felt lighter. Grandma! Finally! Coach Peterson was super mad. He said next time he's going to charge $1 for every minute parents are late. Elena ruffled his hair. I'm sorry, sweetie. I had a doctor's appointment. Ricky's expression grew serious as he studied her face. Are you sick? You look different. Children saw everything. They hadn't yet learned the adult skill of convenient blindness. Elena almost told him then. Spilled everything to this 10-year-old because he was the only one who'd actually looked at her long enough to notice something was wrong. I'm just a little tired, she said instead. Let's get you home so I can start dinner. The walk back to the bus stop felt longer than it had before. Her ankles were swollen, and the metallic taste in her mouth, a symptom she now knew was connected to her failing kidneys, made her feel nauseated. By the time they reached home, all Elena wanted was to lie down and process what was happening to her. Instead, she found Robert in his recliner, exactly where she'd left him that morning. "You're late," he said without looking up from his newspaper. The television blared a golf tournament that Elena was certain he wasn't actually watching. "Sarah called here looking for you." "I had a doctor's appointment," Elena said, hanging up her coat. Robert made a non-committal sound. "What's for dinner?" "Everyone will be here soon." 42 years together, and he couldn't even ask what the doctor had said. Elena stared at the back of his head, thinking of all the time she'd driven him to his appointments, sat in waiting rooms for hours, filled his prescriptions, and listened to him describe every ache and pain in excruciating detail. The inequality of it suddenly seemed breathtaking. "Lasagna," she finally answered, heading toward the kitchen with Ricky trailing behind her. "Can I have ice cream before dinner, Grandma? I'm starving." Elena reached for the freezer door, too tired to argue. As she scooped vanilla into a bowl, she caught her reflection in the microwave door. The woman staring back at her looked exhausted, gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, lines etched around her mouth and eyes. When had she gotten so old, so tired, so used to putting everyone else first that the news of her own mortality felt like an inconvenience rather than a tragedy? The sound of cars pulling into the driveway announced the arrival of the rest of the family. Moments later, the quiet house erupted with noise. Sarah and Maria arguing about some perceived slight, the grandchildren thundering through rooms, sons-in-law immediately commandeering the living room television from Robert, who moved to the dining room to continue reading his paper. "Mom, what's for dinner?" "We're starving," Maria called out from the living room. "Lasagna," Elena replied, pulling it from the refrigerator. "Did you make the spinach salad like last time?" "Tom's on that new health kick," Sarah added, still not bothering to come into the kitchen. Elena set the heavy glass dish on the counter, suddenly overwhelmed. The weight of the day, the diagnosis, the endless demands, it all crashed down at once. Her hands began to shake uncontrollably, and the dish slipped from her grasp, shattering against the tile floor with a deafening crash. Lasagna splattered everywhere, walls, cabinets, floor. Elena stood frozen in the middle of the mess, staring at her trembling hands as tomato sauce seeped into her shoes. "Mom!" Sarah's concerned voice finally called out. "You okay in there?" Elena looked at the broken glass surrounding her. 42 years of marriage, 25 years of motherhood, 15 years of grandmotherhood, her entire life spent caring for others, and now, when she needed someone to care for her, she stood alone in a kitchen full of broken glass and ruined dinner. And suddenly, with perfect clarity, Elena knew, if she didn't speak up now, she might die without ever having really lived. "Mom!" Sarah rushed into the kitchen, stopping short at the sight of the mess. "What happened?" Elena stood motionless among the shattered glass and splattered tomato sauce. Something inside her had broken along with that dish, something that had been holding her together for decades. The sharp smell of oregano and basil filled the room as her family gathered at the kitchen entrance, their faces a mix of shock and irritation. "Great," Maria muttered. "Now what are we supposed to eat?" Robert peered over his reading glasses. "Elena, you've never been clumsy. What's gotten into you?" Elena looked up at their faces, her husband, her daughters, her sons-in-law, her grandchildren. Not one of them had asked if she was hurt, if she was okay. Not one had stepped forward to help clean up. They just stood there, waiting for her to fix it, like always. "I have kidney disease," she said quietly. The kitchen fell silent. Sarah blinked rapidly, as if trying to process the words. "What?" "End-stage renal disease. That's where I was today, at the nephrology clinic. My kidneys are failing. I need to start dialysis immediately." Elena's voice grew stronger with each word. 3 times a week, 4 hours each session. Robert lowered his newspaper. "But you seem fine. You're always fine." A bitter laugh escaped Elena's lips. "I've been sick for months. The fatigue, the swelling in my legs, the nausea. I mentioned it a dozen times, but no one was listening. No one ever listens." Maria stepped forward, her face pale. "Mom, why didn't you tell us it was serious? We would have gone with you to the doctor." "Would you?" Elena asked, meeting her daughter's gaze. "Last month I asked you to drive me to my preliminary tests. You said you were too busy with your fundraising committee. That was different. I didn't know. Exactly. You didn't know because you didn't ask. Elena looked down at the mess surrounding her. No one ever asks. Sarah moved into the kitchen, carefully stepping around the broken glass. Mom, let me help clean this up. You should sit down. No, Elena said firmly, surprising herself as much as everyone else. I'm going to my room. I need to rest. But what about dinner? Robert asked. Everyone's here now. Elena stared at her husband of 42 years, the man she built a life with, raised children with. There are 7 adults in this house. Figure it out. She walked past them, past the stunned faces and open mouths, and climbed the stairs to her bedroom. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and suddenly the noise downstairs erupted. Urgent whispers, accusations, the clatter of cleanup beginning too late. Elena sat on the edge of her bed, her heart racing with an unfamiliar feeling. It took her a moment to recognize it as liberation. Her bedside table was covered with framed family photos, Sarah's wedding, Maria's college graduation, Ricky's baptism. Moments where she'd been present but rarely centered, usually the one behind the camera rather than in front of it. Elena picked up her favorite, a candid shot from a family vacation 10 years ago. Everyone was laughing, caught in a moment of genuine joy. She was half cut off at the edge of the frame. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Mom! Sarah's voice. Can I come in? Elena sighed. Yes. The door opened, and both her daughters entered, their faces tense with worry. Maria carried a mug of tea, which she set carefully on the nightstand. Mom, we had no idea, Sarah began. You should have told us sooner. Would it have made a difference? Elena asked. Would you have suddenly had time to take me to appointments? Would your father have started asking how I was feeling? Would either of you have offered to cook Sunday dinner for a change? Maria and Sarah exchanged uncomfortable glances. That's not fair, Mom, Maria said. We've been busy with our own families, our own problems. And I haven't. Elena felt decades of unspoken words rising to the surface. I've spent my entire adult life taking care of other people. When your father had his back surgery 3 years ago, I was there every minute. When Ricky needed speech therapy, I was the one driving him twice a week. When Tom lost his job, I watched the kids so you could work extra shifts, Maria. We know you've done a lot, Sarah started. No, you don't know, Elena cut in. Because you've never had to think about it. I've been so busy making sure everyone else's life runs smoothly that I've disappeared. Even to myself. A heavy silence filled the room. From downstairs came the sounds of Robert and the sons-in-law arguing about where to order takeout from. So what happens now? Maria finally asked. With your kidneys, I mean. Elena leaned back against her pillows, suddenly exhausted. Dialysis starts Tuesday. Eventually, I'll need a transplant if I want a normal lifespan. A transplant? Sarah's eyes widened. Like, from a donor? Yes. The doctor said family members are usually tested first to see if they're a match. The tension in the room shifted subtly. Elena watched her daughters' faces, saw the calculation happening behind their eyes. Neither of them said the obvious, that one of them might need to give up a kidney. We'll figure it all out, Maria said quickly. First, let's get you started on dialysis and see what the doctors say. Elena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The hesitation in their voices told her everything she needed to know. You should rest, Sarah added, standing up. We'll take care of dinner and clean up. Don't worry about anything. After they left, Elena lay back on her pillows, listening to the household sounds below. The front door opening and closing as someone left to pick up food. The grandchildren arguing over what movie to watch. Life continuing as if nothing fundamental had changed, even though everything had. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Elena expected it to be from Sarah or Maria, perhaps checking if she wanted food brought up. Instead, it was from a number she didn't recognize. Hi, Elena. This is Miguel from the bus today. I hope you don't mind. I asked Coach Peterson for your number when I dropped off my nephew. Just wanted to check that you got home okay. You seemed upset. My mom always said sometimes strangers see us more clearly than family. Elena read the message twice, strangely touched by this unexpected kindness. She typed back, Thank you for checking on me, Miguel. I made it home, but it's been a difficult day. Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman. His reply came quickly. She was. She also said people deserve second chances at happiness, even late in life. If you ever want to talk, I volunteer at the community center on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Elena set down her phone, thinking about Tuesdays and Thursdays, dialysis days. The center was just a few blocks from the hospital. The coincidence made her smile. A knock on the bedroom door interrupted her thoughts. Robert entered without waiting for her response, a behavior so typical she'd stopped noticing it years ago. "The kids ordered Chinese," he said, hovering awkwardly by the door. "Sarah said you're really sick. Why didn't you say something?" Elena looked at her husband, his thinning hair, the reading glasses perched on his nose, the confused expression he wore whenever domestic matters complicated his orderly life. "I did say something, Robert. Many times. You weren't listening." He shifted uncomfortably. "Well, I'm listening now. What do we need to do to fix this?" "We don't fix this," Elena said. "My kidneys are failing. I need dialysis and eventually a transplant. This is my new reality. But what about?" He gestured vaguely. "Everything? Dinners and picking up the grandkids in the house." Elena felt a wave of something like pity. "That's really what you're worried about? Who will cook your dinners?" "No, that's not what I meant," he said defensively, though his expression suggested otherwise. "I just don't understand why this is happening now. We had everything worked out perfectly." "Perfectly for whom, Robert?" Elena asked softly. "I'm 63 years old, and I've spent my life making sure everyone else was comfortable, happy and cared for. Now I need care, and you're worried about dinners." "You're twisting my words," he protested. Elena shook her head. "I'm not. I'm just finally hearing them clearly." Downstairs, the front door opened, and voices announced the arrival of dinner. Robert glanced toward the hallway, clearly eager to escape this uncomfortable conversation. "Go eat," Elena said. "I'm not hungry." After he left, Elena reached for her phone again and reread Miguel's message. Second chances at happiness, even late in life. The words settled in her mind, planting a seed she wasn't quite ready to examine. That night, Elena slept fitfully, waking often to the unfamiliar feeling of standing at a crossroads. By morning, she would decide. Before anyone else woke up, she packed a small bag with essentials and wrote a brief note. "I'm going to stay with my sister Alice for a while. I need time to process everything. I'll be starting dialysis on Tuesday. Don't worry about me. Elena." She called a cab and left before the house stirred to life, before the demands could begin again, before she could change her mind. Alice had been asking her to visit for years, ever since she'd moved to the coast after her divorce. "It's beautiful here," she told Elena. "It feels like a place where you can start over." Starting over at 63. The thought should have terrified Elena. Instead, as the cab pulled away from the house she'd lived in for 3 decades, she felt something unexpected: hope. Alice had always been her opposite, impulsive where Elena was careful, outspoken where Elena was accommodating, selfish where Elena was selfless. Maybe, Elena thought, as the city gave way to highway, it was time to learn a few lessons from her younger sister. Time to put herself first, before it was too late. The coastal air felt different, lighter somehow, carrying the scent of salt and possibility. Elena stood on Alice's porch, watching waves crash against the shore while her phone buzzed in her pocket. 27 missed calls since yesterday. 13 from Sarah, 9 from Maria, 5 from Robert. "You going to answer any of those?" Alice asked, handing Elena tea. At 60, Alice looked a decade younger than Elena. No children, no husband for 15 years. Just art, travel, and a small beachfront house. "Not yet," Elena said. "I don't know what to say." Her phone buzzed again. "Sarah." With a sigh, Elena answered. "Mom." "Finally. Where are you?" "We've been worried sick." "Something terrible did happen," Elena said quietly. "I got sick, and none of you noticed until I told you." "That's not fair, Mom." "Maybe not, but I'm tired of being fair. I'm tired of putting everyone else first." Elena watched a seagull circle overhead. "I need time to process what's happening without worrying about dinner schedules and soccer practice." "But what about your treatment?" "You need to start dialysis." "I have an appointment at Coastal Memorial tomorrow. Alice will take me." A pause. You planned this? Without telling us? Yes, Elena admitted. I needed to do something for myself, by myself. Just once. The phone shuffled. Mom! Maria now. Are you coming back for Sunday dinner at least? No. I won't be picking up kids, or making meals. Not for a while. So who's supposed to do all that? That's not my problem anymore, Elena said firmly. You're all adults. Figure it out. After hanging up, Elena felt lighter than she had in years. Alice gave her a knowing smile. Proud of you, sis. Only took you 6 decades to grow a backbone. That night, Alice invited friends for dinner, a literature professor, a gallery owner, and a widower who played jazz piano. They talked about books, music, and travel, subjects Elena hadn't visited in years. Elena used to paint, Alice mentioned. She was actually better than me in art school. I wasn't better, Elena protested. And somehow there was never time. There's always time for what matters, the gallery owner said. You just have to stop giving it all away. Later, Elena noticed an unused easel in her room, watercolors beside it. I got those for you, Alice said. Just in case. I wouldn't know where to start, Elena admitted. It's been so long. Alice shrugged. Wherever you want. That's the beauty of starting over. You make the rules now. The next morning brought Elena's first dialysis appointment. The clinic was smaller than expected, with large windows overlooking a garden. Her nurse, Diane, had kind eyes as she connected Elena to the machine. First time's the scariest, Diane assured her. Bring something to read next time. 4 hours goes by slower than you'd think. In the chair beside her sat a man about her age, reading a paperback. He glanced up and smiled. First time? He asked. Elena nodded. That obvious? You have that deer-in-headlights look. I'm Thomas. 6 months on dialysis and counting. Elena. Day 1. Welcome to the club nobody wants to join, Thomas said. The good news is, time works differently here. No rushing, no schedules. Just you and your thoughts for 4 hours. That sounds terrifying, Elena admitted. At first, yeah. But after a while, it becomes a gift. When was the last time someone forced you to sit still and just be? Never, Elena realized. Not in her entire adult life. By her 3rd session, Elena brought a sketch pad and spent hours drawing, hesitant at first, but gradually her hand remembered. Thomas sat beside her each time, offering encouragement. I was a high school principal, he told her. Thought the world would stop turning if I wasn't there every minute. Then my kidneys failed, and guess what? Life went on. That's what I'm afraid of, Elena confessed. That they don't actually need me. Thomas smiled kindly. They need you, the real you. Not just what you can do for them. On her 10th day at Alice's, Elena received an unexpected visitor. Robert stepped out of his car, looking out of place in his press clothes. You look well, he said awkwardly. The ocean air must agree with you. What are you doing here? Elena asked, not inviting him in. Things are falling apart without you. The girls are fighting over who handles what. And he hesitated. I miss you. Once, those words would have been enough. But the woman who stood in Alice's doorway wasn't the same one who had left home. I miss parts of my life too, she said honestly. But I don't miss disappearing. What does that even mean? Robert's frustration broke through. You're talking in riddles. First you're sick, then you're gone. Now you won't come home because you're what? Finding yourself? At our age. Yes, Robert. At our age. Because 63 isn't too old to want more. More than what? We built a good life. Comfortable for who? Elena asked. When was the last time you cooked a meal? Or picked up the grandkids? Or even asked me how my day was? Robert's face flushed. That's not fair. We had an arrangement. No. Elena cut him off. You had an arrangement. I had obligations. There's a difference. They stood facing each other, 40 years of marriage suddenly visible between them. So what now? Robert finally asked. You're just done. With all of us. I'm not done with our family. But I am done with being taken for granted. And where does that leave me? For the first time, Robert looked truly lost. Exactly where I've been for years, Elena said gently. Learning to take care of yourself. That evening, Elena received a text from Miguel. Coach Peterson mentioned you hadn't been picking up Ricky lately. Everything okay? The simple message touched her heart. She typed back, taking some time for myself at my sister's. Started dialysis this week. Thank you for checking on me. His response came quickly. Everyone deserves to put themselves first sometimes. My mother would approve of your courage. 3 months passed like waves breaking on the shore, gradually reshaping Elena's life into something new and unexpected. The little beachfront house became a sanctuary, her 3 weekly dialysis sessions a strange kind of meditation. Her hands, once perpetually busy with other people's needs, now held paintbrushes more often than laundry baskets. You're getting really good, Alice said one evening, examining Elena's latest watercolor, a sunset over the ocean, all fierce oranges and deep purples. I'm just playing around, Elena replied, but she smiled at the praise. The painting wasn't perfect, but it was honestly hers, every brushstroke a small act of reclaiming herself. Her phone lit up with a text from Maria. Family meeting tomorrow at 5. Important. Please come. Elena showed the message to Alice, who raised an eyebrow. Are you going? I think so, Elena said. It's time. She'd spoken regularly with her daughters these last months, their conversations gradually shifting from accusations to tentative understanding. They'd visited twice with the grandchildren, awkward weekend trips, where Elena showed them her paintings and took them to the beach but didn't cook a single meal or wash a single dish. Robert had called weekly, their talks evolving from tense silence to something approaching honesty. I've been learning to cook, he told her last week. Nothing fancy, but I haven't burned the house down yet. Elena arrived at her old home precisely at 5, a small wrapped canvas under her arm. The house looked different somehow, the garden slightly overgrown, toys scattered across the lawn, a new welcome mat on the porch. Not worse, just different. Life had continued without her constant tending. Robert opened the door before she could knock. You're here, he said, relief evident in his voice. The living room had been rearranged, chairs pulled from the dining room to form a circle. Sarah, Maria, their husbands, and Robert, all waiting with solemn faces. What's going on? Elena asked, suddenly wary. Sarah and Maria exchanged glances. Maria spoke first. Mom, we've all been tested, she said, for kidney compatibility. Elena sat down, stunned. All of you? Sarah nodded. Even Dad. We wanted to surprise you. And? Elena whispered, heart pounding. I'm a match, Robert said quietly. A perfect match, actually. Elena stared at her husband of 43 years. You want to give me your kidney? I do. He cleared his throat. The doctor says I'm healthy enough, and the recovery isn't too bad. 6 weeks, and I'll be back to normal. Back to normal, Elena repeated. The words hung in the air, layered with meaning. Maria leaned forward. Mom, we know things can't go back to how they were before. We don't expect that. But we miss you. And if Dad can give you a kidney, you won't need dialysis anymore. You could come home, Sarah added. On your terms. Elena looked at their faces. Hopeful, nervous, sincere. You all did this for me. We did, Robert said. Elena, I've learned a lot these past months. How to run the dishwasher. How to shop for groceries. How to be alone with my thoughts. He gave a self-deprecating smile. Turns out I'm not very good company. And we've learned too, Sarah said. How much we took for granted. How unbalanced everything was. Thomas's words from dialysis echoed in Elena's mind. They need you, the real you. Not just what you can do for them. I've changed, Elena said quietly. I can't go back to being invisible. We don't want you to, Robert assured her. I don't want you to. The house is empty without you, but not because there's no one cooking or cleaning. It's empty because you're not painting in the sunroom, or reading on the porch, or telling those ridiculous jokes you love. Elena blinked back tears. You've never mentioned my jokes before. I've never mentioned a lot of things, Robert admitted. That was wrong of me. Maria pulled out her phone. We've made a schedule, Mom, for when you come home after the transplant. Everyone has chores, even the grandkids. Dad's cooking Sundays and Thursdays. God help us all, Robert muttered, and everyone laughed. Elena unwrapped her canvas, revealing her painting of the ocean at sunrise, new light breaking over endless possibility. It's beautiful, Sarah whispered. I've been thinking, Elena said. Alice's neighbor runs art classes at the senior center. She thinks I could teach a beginner watercolor course. You should do it, Robert said immediately. The world deserves to see how you see it, Elena. The words were so unexpected, so perfectly right, that Elena felt something shift inside her, the final piece of herself clicking back into place. 2 months later, Elena woke in a hospital room, groggy from anesthesia. Robert was in the bed next to hers, pale but smiling weakly. Did it work? She asked. The doctor nodded. Perfectly. Your new kidney is already functioning well. Elena reached across the space between their beds, her fingers finding Robert's. Thank you, she whispered. Anything for family, he replied. The real kind, where everyone gives and everyone receives. Recovery came slowly, but differently than Elena had imagined. This time, she wasn't caring for someone else while neglecting herself. This time, the family rallied around both her and Robert, meals appearing without her cooking them, the house staying clean without her constant work, the grandchildren drawing pictures for both their grandparents. 6 weeks after the surgery, Elena stood before 8 nervous students at the senior center, paintbrushes in hand. Alice sat in the back row, giving her a thumbs up. I'm not an expert, Elena began. I'm just someone who found herself again through art. Sometimes the most beautiful things come from the darkest moments. That evening, she returned to the house she once again called home. Ricky was setting the table while Robert stirred something on the stove that smelled surprisingly good. Sarah arrived with a bottle of wine, and Maria brought dessert. The house hummed with the comfortable chaos of family, but now, Elena stood at its center rather than its edges. After dinner, her phone pinged with a message from Miguel. How's life with your new kidney? Elena smiled and typed back. Better than I could have imagined. I'm teaching art now. My family is learning to see me. I'm learning to be seen. His response came quickly. My mother would be proud of you. Second chances are rare gifts. Elena looked around at her family laughing in the living room, at the easel Robert had set up by the window, at the schedule on the refrigerator with everyone's names and responsibilities clearly marked. Second chances indeed. She picked up her paintbrush. There was still daylight left, and she had a new perspective to capture. Not just the ocean at sunrise, but the beautiful, imperfect mosaic of a family remaking itself, with her visible at its heart. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.